2022 saw the releases of several subcompact 7-seat crossovers and MPVs, chief among which were the first ever Hyundai Stargazer and of course the second generation Honda BR-V. Now we've had sort of limited drives with them and we haven't really driven them in the real world, but what we're gonna do now is take a look at their numbers and their specs and what they have to offer. This, folks, then, is the Spec-Sheet Brawl. But hold on for a second. Wasn't the Stargazer priced at 998,000 pesos? Well, that was the introductory price, and now that we're beyond that, it's now 1,038,000, so it's a pretty substantial increase from the introductory price. And if you bought one before the price increase, then good for you. As for the pricing of the BR-V, I get that some of you are gonna say, well, that's pretty expensive for a small 7-seater, but we're gonna take a look at the other specs and features so you can also see if you can justify that additional pricing. Under the hood, well, they're pretty similar, especially on paper, because both of them have 1.5-liter engines with twin cabs and variable valve timing. However, it's the Honda with a slight power advantage here because the Honda has 119 horsepower while the Hyundai has 113. And when it comes to the torque advantage, well, it's as marginal as they come. It's not like you're gonna feel that significant of a difference because the BR-V has 145 Newton meters while the Hyundai has 144. I doubt that you're gonna feel 1 Newton meter of difference, but either way, an advantage is an advantage. For those who prefer a good old stick shift, you only have one choice here, and that's the BR-V because it's available with a 5-speed manual. Of course, the aforementioned CVT is available for base, mid, and high-spec models. But if you can't be bothered with a manual transmission at all, that's where the Hyundai comes in with its IVT, or Intelligent Variable Transmission. So what exactly is IVT? Well, it's a bit like CVT, but sort of Hyundai speak. But it goes beyond that, and I apologize for the nerd moment here. So, if you could stay with me here, IVT uses a chain belt instead of a mechanical belt to reduce slippage and improve power delivery and aims to deliver better fuel economy. At least that's what the guys from Hyundai say. Of course, the only way to find out is if we're able to take it out for real-world testing for fuel economy. And speaking of fuel economy, Hyundai doesn't have testing yet or official numbers for the Stargazer just yet. But Honda does. So what is Honda's fuel economy claim for the all-new BR-V? Well, it's 24.7 kilometers per liter with the CVT. Of course, real-world testing doesn't always show the exact same 24.7 kilometer per liter rating, so maybe for both of them, we'll see about 15-16 kilometers per liter in light traffic, maybe closer to 18-19 kilometers per liter on the highway, and in city driving, maybe we'll be happy to see 9 to 11 kilometers per liter. Of course, we'll only find out once we're able to drive them both. People in the market for these cars usually have a family, and that would mean that safety is an utmost priority. So what do these two have to offer? Well, let's take a look at the top spec models and see what they have. So let's start with what both of them have, and the range-topping Stargazer and BR-V come with 6 airbags, anti-lock brakes with electronic brake force distribution, hill start assist, and most importantly perhaps, stability control. I mean, these are family cars after all, and you want to avoid that accident in the first place. However, if you want to get a lesser variant of the Stargazer, you're gonna have to deal with just 2 airbags, one for the driver, one for the passenger. So you get less airbags in the lower spec variants. But for the BR-V, yes, you get less airbags compared to the top-of-the-line VX. However, the S and the V still come with 4 airbags, so still not a bad airbag count there. By now, you're probably familiar with some of the features of Honda Sensing, and Honda Sensing is of course standard in the top-of-the-line VX. And some of these features include adaptive cruise control, automatic high beam, lead car departure warning, lane keeping assist, road departure mitigation, lane departure warning, and even automatic emergency braking. Not that we actually want to try that out in the real world. But the BRV also has one neat feature that we wish would be available in more cars, and that's called Lane Watch. So what is Lane Watch? You have this camera mounted on the passenger side mirror, and what it does when you flick your turn signal, it projects what's seen on the camera onto your middle screen. So it's sort of like an extended side view mirror. And by other means, you can also press a button on the turn signal stalk so you don't have to flick the signal to see what the camera sees. Pretty neat stuff. But of course, Hyundai will not be outdone here because they have a thing called Hyundai Smart Sense. Now, it's also an active safety suite, and it has features such as high beam assist, forward collision warning, forward collision mitigation, etc., etc. But Hyundai Smart Sense has a feature that's really worth talking about, and I think it's something you really need in a family car. And it's called Safe Exit Warning. Now, what it does is it alerts you if there's any oncoming traffic when you're about to open the door. And that comes in handy given that there's a lot of motorcyclists, cyclists trying to sneak in at the last minute alongside you before you get down from your vehicle. And not only that, that safe exit warning would also mean that there's lesser risk of damaging your vehicle and possibly dealing with hospital bills of the person that's just hit your door. Really, I think that's a great feature, and it should be standard in more models. Which is the bigger subcompact 7-seater here? Now let's take a look at their dimensions, starting with the length. And it's the Honda BRV that takes the advantage in terms of length from bumper to bumper at 4,490 mils long. Well, what about width? Well, they're literally the same width at 1780 mils. But as for height, the Hyundai takes a slight advantage at 1,695 mils, just 10 mils above the BRV. Now, talking about the wheelbase, and that's basically the distance from the front wheel to the rear wheel, it's the Hyundai that takes the advantage here again at 2780 mils. Talking about the under chassis, the Stargazer and the BRV are almost identical because both use McPherson struts at the front and torsion beams at the rear. They also have similar brake arrangements. You got discs at the front and drums over at the back. Where they do differ though is in rim size or tire size. Now, while the base model BRV does come with 16-inch steel rims, the rest of the lineup does have 17-inch alloy wheels. The Stargazer, on the other hand, well, you get 16 inches no matter the variant. Having an advanced infotainment system is a must in every new car these days, and that's not just because cars are getting more and more equipment, but also to keep your passengers a little bit more entertained. So what do these two have to offer? Well, starting with the BRV, you get a 7-inch touchscreen across the entire variant range. So yes, even the entry-level manual model has a 7-inch touchscreen. On top of that, you even get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. As for the Hyundai, the Stargazer gets a larger 8-inch touchscreen, but only if you order the GLS or GLS Premium. If you're gonna go for the entry-level GL, you're gonna be stuck with a rather old-school 2-DIN radio. And for those who don't know what a 2-DIN radio looks like, how old are you? Anyway, the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto system is also standard for the GLS and GLS Premium versions of the Stargazer. Other things that are in common with the two of them are the smart keyless entry systems, and these systems are only available for the BRV, at least for the V and VX model, while the Stargazer, that's standard in the GLS and GLS Premium. Now for parking assist, the BRV has them standard across the entire range, while the Stargazer doesn't. The Stargazer only has park assist for the GLS and GLS Premium. If you're gonna go for the GL, you're gonna have to use your good old eyes and your tachometer. And given that these things are gonna be used on road trips, what about cruise control? Well, here's the sort of weird thing about the both of them. If you want cruise control in the BRV, you have no choice but to go for the top-of-the-line VX model. But if you're gonna go for the Stargazer, you don't get adaptive cruise control, but you get standard cruise control nonetheless for the top two variants. So it's either you go all out on adaptive with a Honda, or you go standard with the Hyundai, regardless of the variant. So far, we've talked about pretty much everything. However, there is one topic that needs to be touched upon, and that's the fuel tank capacity. See, an efficient engine wouldn't be anything if it didn't have range. And ideally, the bigger the fuel tank, the more you can get out of your fill-ups. So which has the bigger fuel tank here? That would be the Honda at 42 liters. The Hyundai has 40 liters. Now, I know what you're thinking, maybe it's not too much of an advantage, but if you multiply those 2 liters by, let's say, 10 kilometers per liter, you're still gonna go further on every tank. And that's assuming both of these cars do the same fuel consumption. Of course, Hyundai can pull an advantage here by having a more efficient engine, but either way, we're looking at about 380 to 450 kilometers in city driving in terms of range, and in terms of highway driving, if we're to believe the fuel economy figures given by the manufacturers, we're looking at about 750 to 800 kilometers. And that wraps up our spec sheet brawl for the Honda BRV and Hyundai Stargazer. So on paper at least, which one do you think comes out on top? Is it the Honda or the Hyundai? Let us know in the comments below. Feel free to argue with random people in the comment section or argue with us through our socials. But until then, we'll see you in our next video.